Hey friends, I know it's been a little while since I last posted a video, but I am back. So for the return of Fire Emblem discussion, let's talk about something that has been covered ad nauseum by other YouTubers, Redditors, bloggers, and the like for years. Map design. My goal today is to share a few of the things that I look for in map design to decide whether or not it is quote-unquote a good map. But as always, your feedback and opinions are necessary for this to be a discussion, so be sure to share your thoughts in the comments once the video is through. When I'm trying to decide whether or not a map is quote-unquote good, I ask myself three questions. Number one, is it engaging? Number two, did the map's design and enemy placement make sense with the objective of the map? And three, were there any parts of the map that felt overly tedious? Let's go through each of these questions one by one and dissect what they really mean. So number one, is it engaging? Simply put, does the gameplay of the map keep me interested and entertained? Is there something for me to do every turn? Are there side objectives? Are all of my units important to the outcome of the map, or do I have some unit slots that are completely unnecessary? All of these questions go through my mind when I'm considering whether or not a map is engaging or not. The classic good example of this concept is Conquest Chapter 10. Anyone who's played Fire Emblem Fates Conquest knows what chapter I'm referring to. It is a defend chapter where the goal is to keep the enemy from reaching the green tiles at the top of the map. The player is given some specific tools to accomplish this task. There are ballistas for your archers to use to weaken enemies as they approach your main force. There's a magic tower that allows one of your two magic users to chip away at enemies as well. The first few turns are pretty chill, really. The player's given time to set up their defenses using choke points with their beefier characters, but it starts to get real a few turns in once enemies start coming from three different directions. Walls begin to be broken down, meaning the player has a few more places they must consider when placing units. Then crap hits the fan when flyer reinforcements begin appearing, and the game has the audacity to do one of the craziest things to the player in the last few turns that turn the whole experience on its head. I won't spoil it for those who haven't played it yet, but it blew me away the first time I played it. On my first playthrough of Conquest, that map kept me engaged for a couple of hours trying to figure it out, and I enjoyed every single moment of it. As a final definition, an engaging map is one that holds the player's attention. It pushes him forward and challenges the player to think through their action, rather than mindlessly throwing strong units into hordes of enemies. Let's move on to number two. Does the map's design and enemy placement work with the objective of the map? Here are a few more questions that go along with this main question. Are there certain aspects of the map that impede progress in a frustrating way rather than in a challenging way? And did the map just feel like it had an objective that just didn't fit what was there? This is going to require a couple examples to get my point across, so let's start with a bad example of this. Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn Part 3 Chapter 7. The goal of this map is to survive. Sounds well and good, but then you realize that the map is a swamp, and your units can literally stay in the upper corner where they spawn and be relatively safe. Sure, there will be flyers that come and attack your units, and some enemies will begin to make it to your party, but your army could easily avoid most conflict and chill in the top corner. The sense of urgency is gone when the objective is made easy by design. And yes, I understand that there are one or two side objectives to go for, but if this map had a different objective, such as defeat boss, route, or arrive, it would have been much more interesting. In that same vein, if the map had been tailored around the objective to survive by making conflict less avoidable by having enemy reinforcements appear behind the player or by pushing the player forward with more crucial side objectives, the map could have just been more fun. Okay, time for some positivity. A map that is designed around its objective is the final chapter of Genealogy of the Holy War. Now, I know some of you are going to be skeptic of this, but hear me out. The goal of every chapter in FE4 is to conquer every enemy castle by having the main character stand at its gate. Many of the maps in FE4 have the player doing a lot of backtracking to seize every castle, but this one is streamlined in such a way that makes the objective make sense. You start here at Chalfie and make your way to Ada. Upon seizing Ada, the path to Dozal opens up. Then the player moves on to Frege. After Frege, things get interesting. The ultimate goal is to defeat Julius here, but to do that you need the help of Julia. The problem is, Julia is being mind-controlled by Manfroy, who is to the north, so you must send the main character Seliph there to defeat Manfroy. Well, doesn't that leave units sitting around wasting away with nothing to do? No, because these guys exist. These are the Dreadlord, 12 very powerful enemies that your other units will be dealing with. Anyways, FE4 Endgame has an incredibly solid flow to it that fits the objective of the map. Now, I'm not here to say that any of the map design or enemy placement in Genealogy is good, but it does design its final map around the objective, which is one sign of a good map. Finally, let's talk about number 3. Are there any parts of the map that felt tedious? Pretty self-explanatory. Are there any portions of the map that force the player, keyword being forced, to do tasks that are repetitive, boring, or seemingly pointless? I instantly think of the desert map in Echoes, where there are a bunch of archers in a building. That map requires your units to move 1 or 2 spaces at a time due to the desert terrain. This quickly becomes boring and repetitive. Really, there are many maps in this series that feel tedious, but to be fair, there are plenty that keep the energy up and are pretty exciting. So as a quick overview, I asked the following 3 questions when deciding if a map is good or not. Number 1, is it engaging? Number 2, did the map design and enemy placement make sense with the objective of the map? And number 3, were there any parts of the map that felt overly tedious? Now it's your turn to tell me what you think. What things do you consider when deciding whether or not you like a map's design? Let me know in the comments and I will respond to your thoughts later this week. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more Fire Emblem discussion.